All right, yay, we are live. Hello, everyone. Let me just check some settings really quick. Hello, hello. Looks good. Audio and video look good. Hi, guys. Welcome to another live Q&A. Best time of the week. Hello, Anna. Hi, Missy. It's my favorite time of the week. I love starting it off with their lives. Aw, thank you. Good to have you here. Oh, excuse me. Hello, Gordana. Rose. Hi. Hi. Vivian. Dear X. Bubba. Bubba? I wanted to call you Bubba, but it's hello. Hey there, Delilah. Yay. Welcome. Happy Sunday, y'all. Or Monday. Wherever in the world you may be. It might be Monday for some of you. We'll go ahead and get started here in just a moment. I'd like to give it 30 seconds to a minute or so, let people get the notification, come on in, put your feet up, and we'll dive in. How's everybody's weekend so far? You having a good time? Lavi, hello. Hello, David, Colonel Moonlight, Jamie, Naranje, Roxana. Hi, guys. My absolute favorite time of the week. I already love Sundays before this. There's just something about a lazy Sunday that's just so amazing. But this just solidified that. Ash, welcome. First live here. So excited. Yay. I'm excited to have you here. Hello. Oh, yay. Oh, yay. This is going to be good. This is going to be good. Nothing but blue skies and sunshine today. Amazing. Yeah, Montana's beautiful. The few times that I've been, it looked like a freaking postcard. So pretty. DCE. Welcome, guys. JT. Welcome, April. Hello, Mimi. Hi. John. You look so excited to be here, John. Welcome. I'm happy to see you. Hello from Australia, 3:30 in the morning. Dang, Bev. Wow. Good to have you here. I'm looking forward to our coaching too. Yes. That's some dedication. Wow. All righty. So happy I caught it live. Glad to have you, MM. These are always a good time. These are always a good time. I absolutely love to be here. Let's see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of regulars who join me every week. So happy to see you, and some new faces too. Welcome. Let's go ahead and get started. I've already got about 50 or so people in here, and I know that more are going to come in as we go along. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you for being here for another live Q&A where we talk all things manifestation, the law of assumption, and just how to create the best life possible. Just a couple quick things to announce, as I always do at the beginning. I've got in the description box below my resources if you're interested in working together or any of my programs. All of that's down below. I've got my one-on-one coaching waitlist. There's currently a waitlist, but you can find that link down there if you're interested. And I had somebody ask me about the self-concept masterclass that will be releasing next weekend. It's taken a bit longer than anticipated, but I really do not want to leave a stone unturned with this one because this is important. So that will become available next weekend. I'll announce that likely in the next live. And my group coaching program is coming open here very soon. I am going to start reaching out to those who have registered here in the next week or so. So if you have not registered or if you need more information about it, again, check down below. It is my 12-week group program that I have spent so much time and resource on. Um, the people who have taken it have had absolutely amazing results. And yeah, anyways, enough rambling on about that stuff. You can find it all below. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. But first, caffeine. As always. Hey, Missy, it's the Marine Corps guy you had a session with a few months back. I can't speak any details, but if it works out, you're going to have a hell of a story to tell your viewers. Oh my God. Yes, of course I remember you. Of course, your story is absolutely incredible, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait. Oh, you guys are in for a treat with that one. Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, chat's jumping. I love the picture above your bed. Thank you. Yeah, that picture is amazing. It reminds me of imagination. It's a weird picture, and I absolutely love it. What if I truly strongly believe that my SP likes me and is attracted to me? Because I do. Is that the same as living in the end? And can those beliefs manifest my SP into my life? Good question. So if you genuinely have the belief that your SP likes you and is attracted to you, is that enough to manifest your SP into your life? Maybe. Uh, the reason that we are taught to go to the end, or why it is, why we learn about going to the end, is we want to begin to imagine and specifically feel ourselves living that state, living that reality as the version of us that we desire to be. So I mean, I think it's very important to have the belief and trust that your SP is, attracted to you and that likes you, right? The mutual feelings. But, I wouldn't say that that alone is living in the end, because that alone does not imply you two are in a relationship. You know what I mean? So I would go to the end, but that having that belief is absolutely going to be beneficial to going to the end, right? If we have doubts about our person in that regard, it can be challenging to live in the end. But I would continue to imagine what it would be like, what it would feel like, were the two of you together, like in that experience right now. Yeah, would absolutely do so. My first time joining. Welcome, dear X. I got some newbies here. I love it. Hey, Missy, can you talk about imagining what implies versus imagining the desire itself? Neville always said to imagine what implies. Yes, Annie, that's a really good question. And that's referring to thinking of something and thinking from something. It's sort of the same idea. Imagining something that implies it's done means that it's done, right? So I guess can I use for an example? Like going to an imaginal act where you and your person are celebrating your 1 year wedding anniversary. That implies that you've been married for 1 year, right? Versus just imagining the desire itself, which is like just imagining SP or whatever. That's not implying that the two of you are already together. It's about the implication, right? Or if you're having an internal dialogue, if you're having an imaginary conversation with somebody, and you're hearing them talk about your desire from the place of already having it, like congratulating you for a successful business, or on your anniversary with SP. Those things imply that it's already done, that it is already so. So that's really what we want to get behind it, and that's what's going to help us tap into the feeling of it, right? So essentially, that's thinking from the end versus just thinking about it. Just, imagining something, but still seeing it as separate from us. I hope that makes sense. Hello, Missy. If you say we always manifest, then how come daydreaming doesn't manifest? Good question. So the only difference with daydreaming is that implies deferred occupancy. And what that means is that we imagine something, but we're still very much aware of the separation of it. Like almost like we think about something longingly. We think about something that, we would like to happen in the future someday. Like that would be daydreaming. That doesn't that there's no implication there that you already have it or that you already are the person with the desire, if that makes sense. Um, so yeah, but we are always manifesting, and we can prove that to ourselves. With observation, we can see what we imagine naturally in the day to day. Our thoughts, our reactions, our feelings, all point to what we believe and assume is true, and we're going to see that the 3D also reflects that. We're going to see that the two are very much connected. Um, so yeah, I hope that makes sense. If you need me to clarify anything, let me know. Happy Sunday from the UK. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Uh, oh, thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Chrissy. When revising, how does your mind know which memory you're revising? If the memory/event you want to change is too long to play out and too complicated. So revising, how does your mind know what memory you're revising? So I'm sorry, I'm trying to make sure I understand. So, well, your mind knows, the subconscious mind knows everything. Your subconscious mind knows everything that's ever happened to you is, uh, it's the subconscious mind knows. Yeah, yeah. If it's too long to play out and too complicated, I'm a little bit confused by your question, Christine, and I hope I'm answering it right. But if you recall a memory, I mean, your mind. No, I mean, if you're speaking about the revised memory, like if you're creating a new story, a new memory, your mind's gonna know what you're referring to because again, it recalls everything, right? The subconscious mind is a that's where our power source comes from. Yeah, don't underestimate the power of the mind. It knows. But again, if I'm misunderstanding, let me know. I'll definitely be sure to clarify. And thank you for the super chat as well, ENZ. I have two SP scenes, one where she reaches out visualizing a text, and the other of us in bed as if already together. Is it okay to have these stages? So, is it okay to have two scenes, one where you're receiving a text message and another where the two of you are in bed already together? I mean, yeah, yeah. The important thing is how are you feeling? Like, how does it make you feel? Like, are you able to capture the feeling of it with those scenes? If the answer is yes, then yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, let me go back. Um, Find my spot again. How to take my SP off the pedestal. I am being said that I'm giving it excess efforts. That can be that can be $1 million question. Because most of us, especially when learning about the law, getting familiar with the law, most people have been in a place where we had our person on the pedestal. I certainly did. Um, and I it's a practice and deepening the trust and understanding that you are the only change. Like the only one to change is self. Like this has really nothing to do with changing the person out there. Like the change that we want externally is the natural, it's going to be the byproduct of the change that takes place within you, right? So and that's going to come more naturally as you continue to deepen this practice and deepen your faith in the law itself. You're going to come to realize that this is really about the change taking place within you. But at first it can be difficult because we're still very fixed in this idea that there's a 3D world where everything is separate from us and that we want to change that person out there, or we want something out there to rearrange itself. So yeah, we see them on this very, very high pedestal that we can't reach. Um, yeah, bring it back to you. All we're doing is imagining the version of ourself that is already in this loving, committed relationship, and what that would feel like to us. What would that be like to you in your day to day? What would be the things that, like, what would be your mannerisms, your thoughts, your how would you speak from that place? That's what you're tapping into. So it can be a little bit of a practice, but anytime you find yourself fixated on the 3D or focusing on them out there, seeing them longingly, that is your cue. That is a reminder to you to turn it back within. Go back within, because there is no one to change but self. Where was I? Can you imagine how you stay in the state of gratitude slash positive imagination during a busy day with examples? My meditations are amazing, and I would like to always be in that state. Good question. So, how to stay in that state throughout your day to day? If you have a busy day, you got a lot going on. Well, I mean, there's it's not going to be the case that we're 24/7. Well, I don't want to say can't, or that it won't be, but a lot of times, like it's okay to get wrapped up. Like if we have a busy day at work, that in and of itself is not kicking us out of the desired state, if I'm understanding you correctly. Uh, but how we maintain that state is by making it the dominant state. And that goes for anything, whatever we're trying to do, because we all have a dominant state of consciousness. We all have a state that we subconsciously and often go back to. And that's the one that we've been most familiar with. So we continue to make this new state, the state of gratitude, the state of feeling blessed, feeling satisfied, feeling that, yeah, just that gratitude. The more that we continue to go there in imagination, like that is how you make it a dominant state. And that's how it becomes throughout your day to day, where you automatically dwell to, where you automatically move back to, if that makes sense. So if you're finding that that's not the case or hasn't been the case, it's just a matter of continuing to go back there. That's really where the persistence part comes in, because wherever you dwell most often is where you're going to be moved to go back to, right? You're no longer going to have to consciously and deliberately move yourself back there. It will eventually be the point that that's just your home base, if that makes sense. Hope that makes sense. Hi, Missy. Any tips for feeling your desire? I can visualize what I want, but I have trouble feeling it real. Will I still be able to manifest without the feeling? That's a good question. And I know again, f feeling is one of those tricky words that has a lot of meaning. It doesn't necessarily mean strong emotion. It at times might elicit a strong emotion. That can happen. I'm not saying that it's bad if it happens. We can feel that excitement or deep feeling of some kind of emotion, but that's not always the case. So it really we just want to notice that it begins to feel more and more natural to us. We want to notice the absence of resistance and that when we try to go into a state that's not familiar at first, it's going to feel very foreign to us. It might feel kind of weird. We might even notice some resistance to the idea of that state. Um, so that's what we're aiming to overcome. But if you continue to go back there and you can visualize it, it should inevitably begin to elicit a response. That's what should be happening. If you're not having issues, if you're not forcing it, if you're just allowing yourself to relax into it, if you're not trying to again burst a blood vessel to make this happen, you should notice that you begin to elicit a response naturally. But if that doesn't happen right away, that's okay. Kind of where again the persistence part comes in. Missy, I've watched Neville Goddard's Pearl of Great Price and also your videos on it, and he told that we have to sell all our limiting beliefs, like tarot cards, astrology, etc. Is it also about religion? I wouldn't say that we would need to sell our religion. We do need to sell the idea that there is a God outside of us, that there is some force outside of us that has any kind of power over us. That we would need to sell because that's gonna essentially make us give our power away. We're gonna give our powers to something else outside of us, and we don't ever want to do that, right? Um, but no, I mean Neville very much identified himself as a Christian. He he would read the Bible daily. He would speak on Bible verses in every lecture. But so no, it's not about giving up the religion itself. It's giving up the idea that there's powers outside of you that can hold you back or keep you stuck or punish you somehow. Yeah, that's not a thing. I am aware of a thought I have left over from my last relationship. The thought that I am not a priority, and it comes out a lot in my 3D. I affirm the opposite, but how can I actually change this to stop happening? Good question. Really good question. Because I think a lot of people struggle with similar things to this. Um, and the way to change our thoughts is to change our belief. The way to change our belief is through imagination. We have to imagine ourselves differently. We have to see ourselves differently from this old assumption, from this old belief, right? So, um, if you're affirming the opposite, well, are you noticing any sort of change from the affirmation? Do you notice a change in how you feel when you affirm? Because the thing about affirmations, and I'm gonna make another video about this, is the words alone is not gonna do anything. Words without feeling, without any kind of reaction or response, it's not gonna do anything, really. So if you're noticing you're affirming, but the opposite's still happening, it's because there's still the belief there. You're still imagining yourself in that state of being a low or non-priority. Um, so you begin to imagine things that again would imply that you are a high priority. So what are some things that you could imagine that would imply that you are the priority? You could perhaps imagine that you got a raise at your work, or that you got an award if you're, an artist or a entrepreneur. If you're talking about a relationship, you imagine the person telling you how much of a priority you are to them. But these are things, again, that would imply that you are in fact prioritized. And that's what we want to really impress subconsciously. So I would really begin to play around with the idea internally. Like, what does it mean to you to be prioritized? What does that look like and feel like for you? That state where you are, in fact, the priority. What is that like? And I would continue to go there and get familiar with it. Some teachings say to accept the possibility of failure to increase detachment and decrease importance. Do I need to do this? I only want my SP and I feel good about it too. I wouldn't say you need to do that. No. No. Myself personally, I would never teach to accept the possibility of failure, because failure is not a thing unless we decide that it is. It's not. It's impossible to fail unless we have decided that to be so. And the only one who could decide that for us is us. Again, to accept the possibility of failure is to accept a power outside of you. That's not a thing. What will increase detachment and importance is faith in the law, faith that you are, in fact, the operant power. I would much rather encourage to build your faith and trust that that failure is impossible. I think that's going to be a much more effective way to decrease the attachment, so to speak. Yeah, yeah. Don't listen to anyone who tells you to accept failure. No. Mm. John, good question. If I can't find an imagination scene that feels right, can I just ask myself who I would be, how I would behave and feel, etc.? Would that be enough to impress the subconscious mind? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Um, literally, and that's why I say all the time, like, ask yourself the question, what would it be like? Who would I be as the version of me that has the desire? Like, how would I behave and feel? Like, literally ask yourself the question. Your mind is primed to want to answer questions. Our mind wants to answer questions. So it's going to start to come up with the ideas naturally, right? If we ask ourselves the questions, it doesn't need to be like a visual scene. It doesn't need to be anything like that. Just see what comes up to you when you ask those questions, and see what comes up for you, and just play with that and continue to um, you know allow yourself to entertain those ideas. Yeah, that's absolutely, and that's what helps us elicit the feeling. That's what helps us elicit the response that becomes impressed, basically. Good question. Also, are you learning Japanese? I love that. If I manifest hot and cold scenario with SP, I realize it's because I don't feel important to them. Any suggestions how to change that, please? Absolutely. So hot and cold behavior from SP, or from anybody, is reflection of our own double-mindedness. That's what that means. If somebody is showing up in your reality hot and cold, it's because of the hot and cold that we're feeling internally, right? When we're going from the state of feeling confident, feeling loved, feeling secure, to the state of uncertainty, uh, feeling lacked, feeling not good enough. So it's when we do that back and forth that we see it reflected like that in the 3D. Um, so I wouldn't say that it's like the reason, or I guess the belief that you don't feel important to them, uh, in and of itself is not the cause. It's our own back and forth within ourselves. But how to change that is really begin to ask yourself and get familiar with, you know, for you, what would it mean and what would imply that you are important to this person? Like, what would be a scenario? What would be a thing that happened that would imply that this person deeply cares about you and that you are important, you are a priority to them? What would that be? Would that be perhaps, um, they do favors for you. They go out of their way to do something lovely for you. They perhaps write a song for you. There's so many different ways that we can get creative with this, but really answer the question because it's going to be different for everybody, right? Like, how would I feel? How would I feel if? And just let yourself entertain what comes up for you, and then continue to let yourself experience that. Continue to let yourself feel into that. And anytime you find yourself going into that doubting, that uncertainty, that fear, that's your cue to come back. Come back and ask the question again. What would imply that I am important? What state of consciousness? That version of me who already knows this to be true, what would that be like? And then continue to go there. I can't manifest because I don't know how to detach. Is there a technique that you use to help you detach from a desire or a person? I've grown pretty burned out to manifest anything. I'm so sorry, Roxana. Yeah, the burnout can definitely be real. Um, and detachment is, I mean, it is an important aspect, but detachment is the place that we get to naturally. We can't force ourselves to detach per se. And that's not how that works. Um, and really, the one of the best techniques, and it goes back to, again, learning and understanding and trusting ourselves as the operant power. It's really just a deepening of that understanding. So things like self-inquiry, things like the I am meditation, like, we really want to deepen that understanding and trust within ourselves. Um, yeah. Yeah. I do have a video that I've just filmed. I haven't edited it yet or anything that speaks more on detachment, because I know that part can still feel very much difficult for a lot of people. And again, I have to reiterate that detachment doesn't mean detachment from the desire. It's detachment from that old state, that old story. Um, and if you're noticing burnout, I would strongly recommend to take a break for a moment. Give yourself time to recuperate, rest, recharge your batteries, because burnout indicates that there's been way too much force and effort going into this. And if it feels like it's been a chore, if it feels like you're trying to make something happen, you're trying to force yourself to do these techniques and jump through these hoops, that's where burnout comes from. And that's not how we want to approach any of this. So, give yourself a moment to rest, get some R&R. Um, your desire isn't going anywhere. You can absolutely take some time to just take care of you. And I stress that to everybody who's reached that burnout stage. Don't try to keep forcing yourself to keep going if you are burned out. That's not going to help. Yeah. But yeah, I have a video coming out soon talking more about that. But I would look into things like self-inquiry and understanding you as the operant power versus you as the ego. And we need to stop trying to make things happen from the ego, basically. But yeah, no. Take care of you. Gemma's got a great question. Hi, Missy. How are you? I'm good. If you could go back and speak to the version of you when manifesting SP, what would you go back and tell yourself knowing what you know now? Top tips slash things to do differently. Man, that's a fantastic question. Yeah, I'd have a word with her. The biggest thing that comes to mind is, number 1, it's not outside. And I know we hear this all the time. We hear all the time, Ignore the 3D, it's not about the 3D." But we truly want to understand that this is never about the external world. Like, the mirror will automatically reflect. Again, that is the byproduct of the change that takes place within you, right? So, drop the idea of trying so damn hard to manifest, trying to get this thing, and instead imagine for the sake of enjoying the experience of it, nothing more, nothing less. And truly, deeply mean that. If you haven't seen the video that I released yesterday yet, I would recommend checking that out, because it it's one that I often forgot, or didn't really understand when I was spinning my wheels back in the day, trying to manifest my person. Um, yeah, it's not about that, and really to stop limiting myself based on the past and based on the circumstances. Like, don't do not limit yourself in your mind. Don't hold yourself back or restrict yourself because they said this or they did that, or because the 3D looks like this. Like, we have to take those restrictions and boundaries off of imagination. Let yourself completely go all in. And that world is limitless. So do not limit what you are imagining. Good question, though. Thanks, Missy. Love your channel. Oh, thank you, Terry. Thank you, thank you. Just going back to my spot real quick. Your revision meditation is helping me so much with my health revision. Oh, yay! I'm glad. I can feel myself internally changing. Good. My sticking point is the mirror and physical appearance. Any tips to not react? Yeah, no, I know. And it can be challenging when it's literally reflecting in front of us, right? Like, quite literally reflecting in front of us. Um, if you can, and I know that this isn't always the easiest thing to do, but if you're noticing that that's a big trigger point, like seeing the reflection in your mirror, in your day to day, um, do the best to try to limit that as much as possible. As you continue to strengthen and deepen that internal feeling and that internal change. Um, whatever you can do to, I mean, I know we can't like entirely avoid our reflection all the time, but as much as you're able to, resist the temptation, resist the urge to check something in the 3D. Um, yeah, yeah, because even the temptation to check the 3D implies that we are not in that desired state in that moment. We are not in that state in that moment, because if we were in the desired state, if we were in the wish fulfilled, we wouldn't have that temptation to go check to see if it's changed, right? So things like that. So if you do in the day to day get tempted to go check to see if something's changed, use that as your cue. It's time to go back within. It's time to hit that feeling internally again. It's time to like continue to recondition that internally. Yeah. Yeah. It does get easier. You're going to form a stronger attachment to this new idea. And that's really how you just want to take anything out of the 3D that could potentially trigger you to the best of your ability, till you can get to that place of conviction where the 3D no longer phases you. And you will get there. You will. Welcome, Mohammed. It's good to have you here. Happy Sunday. Hello, Missy. How do I manifest my siblings asking for forgiveness and finally including me? When I live with them and every minute I feel anxiety because they just don't care about me. Oh, I'm so sorry, Moonlight. And yeah, no, I know it can be particularly challenging if we're living day to day in an unwanted circumstance. I know that it can seem very challenging to just ignore the 3D when it's constantly in our face. It's seemingly constantly around us. Um, kind of like what I just mentioned a moment ago. To the best of your ability, when you can, as often as you can, try to limit the amount of exposure to the 3D, especially if you're noticing yourself in a vulnerable state. And I would first and foremost practice things that help to reduce that anxiety. It's going to feel very challenging if we're in a very anxious state, if we're feeling very, scared or uncertain or fearful. From that, it's going to feel very challenging to try to imagine something lovely in the first place. So I always tell people, like, first and foremost, try to reduce that anxiety, try to relieve some of that anxiety. And there's a multitude of ways that you can do that. There's my favorites are breathing, breath work and breathing exercises. There's EFT tapping, which you can absolutely look that up. A lot of people have had amazing success with that. There's things like, meditation, even going for a walk, doing something for yourself that feels nice, just whatever you can do to help get yourself out of that anxiousness first, right? Kind of shut off that fight or flight, that's constantly pumping out cortisol and stress hormones and things that are going to keep you very tense. And we want to be as relaxed as possible first and foremost, is what I'm saying. From there, it's going to feel infinitely easier. It's going to feel thousands of times easier to just let yourself imagine something lovely, to imagine something that feels good. That's goes without saying. When we're in a good mood, it feels so much easier to imagine something lovely, right? And just continue to revise those scenes with your siblings. Continue to imagine those states where you're included, you're feeling included. They're showing you respect, love, those sorts of things. And remember too that those are all states that exist. Those are all real states. Those are all real realities that you can experience. They exist because everything exists. Call of creation is finished, right? So, yeah, first and foremost, I would do what you can to alleviate that anxiety. Limit the amount of exposure to the 3D if it's incredibly triggering for you. Again, to the best of your ability, and just continue to remember and know that whatever you imagine, you can experience because creation is already finished. So continue to go back to what implies that this is the state, this is the reality, that everyone is showing up with the utmost respect for me. Since my brain knows I will get the things that I want, it does not let me get into the wish fulfilled. What can I do? So, since you already know that you're getting the things that you desire, you're not able to go to the wish fulfilled. Well, I mean, in that case, you really don't have to. If you already know that it's done and you're already certain of that, you don't need to continue to go back to that. You don't need to continue to use the imaginal acts that imply something that you already know to be true. Um, I mean, if you, for the sake of enjoyment, if you just want to imagine for the sake of it's lovely and it feels good to do so, I would do that. That's always fun. But if you already know it's done, there's nothing else you need to do. Right? It's akin to, when you're hungry, you eat a meal, and at a certain point, you get full, right? You don't need to keep eating because you're already satisfied. You're already good. It's kind of like that. So Hello, Missy from Greece. Hello. Hello, hello. Thank you for being here. Where's my spot? Sorry, guys, trying to find my spot again. How do I shake off the sense of urgency or trying when doing the imaginal act? How can I get myself to chill out and effort to chill out uh, and just imagine? Good question. Oh God, good question. Um, so the sense of urgency uh, stems from, I mean, there's a couple of things that bring that on. Number one, not trusting ourselves as the operant power, not believing that this is actually possible or doable, or that there's a time limit, right? Um, which kind of goes hand in hand. Uh, Feeling like if I don't see something soon, then it's not going to happen, which again is just not true. It's that's false. Um, and yeah, if we're desperately trying, it's usually stemming from that sense of like, I need to get this before I lose the opportunity to do so. And that's never a thing that's true. States of consciousness are eternal. Like they, nothing is going to go away from us. We don't have a time limit. It's never the case that, oh, if I don't manifest this thing by this time, it's not going to happen. That's never a thing. That's not, that's not a thing that's possible. Um, so, I would first continue to build your faith and trust in the law. That alone is going to solve 99.999% of any issue that you're having. But really, really begin to show yourself or prove to yourself that you are in fact the operant power. Um, you know, Secondly, if you're feeling very anxious, again, focus first on just trying to get yourself to relax. Like relaxation is so important with conscious manifestation. If we're very tense, if we're very stressed, if we're like, that's not going to be a place easily, like, it's not going to be easy to, what's the word? To impress the idea, to imagine the idea, and to enjoy the idea, to enjoy the imaginal act. It's going to feel very challenging to do so from a very anxious state. So, again, use techniques and exercises that help with alleviating that anxiety, and just strongly encourage meditation. Like get into the habit, the daily habit of meditation. That alone helped me so much with my anxiety and with the constant, just spinning thoughts and yeah, that feeling of like, oh God, oh God, oh God, panic, panic, panic. So yeah, um, continue to deepen your faith. Practice things that will help you to alleviate that stress, alleviate that anxiety, such as meditation, breath work, things like that. I can't stress the how much that's going to help. Seriously, it will help you so much. Um, because yeah, like your manifestation's not going anywhere. It's never the case that you're not able to manifest something. That's never a thing. That's not a real thing. Um, yeah. What is best? Staying mindful in the 3D and noticing beauty in the present, or walking the streets like you're in Barbados and imagining palm trees? Maybe both. Yeah, I would say both. I mean, not at the same time, obviously, but um, getting in the habit of doing both. And that's really going back to the meditation. It's going to help us not just with anxiety, but staying present, staying mindful, becoming more observant, and learning to be more and more here in this moment instead of in the future or the past. Yeah, and noticing the beauty in the present. Absolutely, absolutely. Those are things that are naturally going to start happening more and more as you continue to deepen this practice. And of course, then walking the streets like you're in Barbados and you're already there. You're living from that state, right? In your imagination, you are already that. You are already who you want to be. That is the version of you. So what does it feel like in this moment right now? So I would say both. Yeah. Does cleaning slash decluttering your home help to manifest faster? I've been decluttering my apartment and my mind is clearer. Awesome to hear that, Angie. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it does help. Um, like, does the act of cleaning and decluttering alone help to manifest faster? I mean, I would say that what it does to you mentally is certainly gonna help you manifest faster. I know that I certainly am somebody that I when I have clean space, clean house, my mind is much more focused. It's much more clear, much more open. I've never been a huge fan of clutter, so that can certainly help. Yeah, and if it helps you to feel better, I would. Hi, Chi-chan. Missy, if we think manifestation and SP very often, is that obsession and we push them away? I would s I get it's more about what you're imagining versus how often. I don't think that, like, if they're coming up in your mind often, but it's from the state of the wish fulfilled, it's from the place of already being done, that's fine. That's that's kind of what we want, right? If you're talking about thinking and noticing, constantly observing the separation or the lack or the longing, um, yeah, that's what we want to combat. That's what we are aiming to overcome. So I guess it depends on what the thoughts are, because thinking about your SP in and of itself is not a bad thing. David, hello. Hello. Your video yesterday was quantum awesome. Thank you, good sir. Thank you. All right, where's my spots? Hi, Missy. Does living from the end always mean you think of the end scene, or can you also imagine other scenes? Yeah, you can imagine other scenes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We don't have to limit ourselves to just one scene. Kind of think about what we're already doing in the day to day, right? Uh, we're always thinking about different times, different points. Yeah, we're always bouncing around from future to past, and we're never just kind of constantly fixated on one thing or one scene. You can have as many as you want, as long as it feels good, as long as it comes naturally and it's enjoyable. Yeah, go for it. Does "I will not climb a ladder" mean it won't happen or I refuse to climb? Why does it work to manifest climbing a ladder? Does it mean mental diet doesn't matter or we can't think in negatives? Good question, JT. Um, if I'm understanding correctly, why do we say, "I will not climb a ladder," but then we climb the ladder, right? Like that sort of shouldn't it be the opposite? Um, the point of the ladder exercise, that Neville was trying to get across was the power of the subconscious mind versus the conscious mind. Like, that it also, of course, to, show ourselves how powerful we are, right? Faith building exercise, but also, more important than your words in the day to day is what you are imagining, what you are believing, especially in that drowsy period before bed. That window is a powerful window, and whatever we are imagining ourselves doing or being, that's what becomes impressed and thus expressed. So even if we say that, you know, I'm not going to climb a ladder, if we're imagining every night that we are climbing a ladder, that, I mean, again, kind of going back to the law of reversed effort, that when the conscious mind and subconscious mind are at odds, it's the subconscious mind that always wins. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you. Since focusing on my self concept, I notice more thoughts of what is wrong with me and what more do I need to do to be who I choose to be. I'm exhausted. Some advice? I'm sorry, Monica. Since observing more of yourself internally, you're noticing more thoughts, more negative thoughts or thoughts that are not ideal. And what more do I need to do to be who I choose to be? I am exhausted. Yeah. So, first off, there's nothing wrong with you. um, what more do I need to do to be who I choose to be? All that we're told to do, literally all that we're told to do is just allow ourselves to imagine what that would be like. Like actually truly genuinely get familiar with what that would be like for you. So we're not just trying to jump through hoops. We're not trying to do a bunch of chores or techniques to hope and pray that the outcome changes. That's not what this is about. This is about allowing ourselves to imagine. Is imagination, that is our power. That is our creative power. We can go anywhere in imagination. We can go to the state where we're already the person that we desire to be. We are already this person. And what would that be like? Like, put yourself there in your mind. Like, you're now looking through the eyes of the version of you that has your desire. What would that be like? What would you do? What would you think? What would be your behaviors and mannerisms? And just keep entertaining that. That's all. That's all we're being asked to do. And just continue to go back to that. That's how we select a new state. That's how we become familiar with this new state and ultimately select that. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing more to do than that. As humans, we have this wonderful habit of overcomplicating everything. We don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. If I'm a Thank you for the super chat, ENZ. Oh my gosh. I hope I didn't get a notification of that one. I'm so sorry. Thoughts on sleep tapes in my own voice. Yeah, I mean, people have certainly had success with them. I've spoken to many people that have found they are helpful. You might notice resistance at first. You might notice some people have had things happen, such as like taking out their headphones in their sleep. You may notice weird dreams, things like that. Initially, but that does taper off. That does subside as you become more familiar with it. But it certainly does not hurt to experiment and play with that if you haven't yet, if you haven't already. Yeah, yeah, I would absolutely recommend doing so. How do I live in imagination when I live in poverty? Good question. Good question. And again, I know it's difficult. We are not used to imagining things different than our 3D circumstance. And I made a video talking about the two main types of imagination that we have: the synthetic imagination and creative imagination. And the vast majority of people use the synthetic imagination, which is basically you're taking things from your experience and your surroundings And basically the same old, and you're imagining that. You're imagining based off of that, and it's very limited in scope. Creative imagination is where our true power lies because that imagination doesn't have boundaries. We're not restricting ourselves to what is in the 3D. I'm just saying I can't imagine having money because I'm poor. But you can though. But you absolutely can. Like in your mind right now, you can imagine winning $1 million. And what would you do? What would it be like? If you were now abundantly wealthy, what would that be for you? Would you move? Would you get a big house? Would you travel the world? Would you start up a company or a nonprofit organization? These are all questions you can answer. These are all things that you can do to begin to get familiar with that state. And we can do that no matter what the 3D looks like. It doesn't matter. And that's the point. That was the point of my video that I released yesterday, is that we want to learn to not take the restrictions and limitations of the 3D with us into imagination. Like, don't ever do that. Yeah, don't ever do that. That's what I was doing for the longest time, and that's why I, would, for the big things, and why it was a struggle. Because I literally did not imagine, or felt like I couldn't imagine this life of abundance. But we can. We always can. It doesn't matter. 3D doesn't matter. Oh no, Iona. Oh, I'm so sorry, Alona. I'm making a note to send you an email. Did you? Oh, it's okay. We'll get this sorted. Don't worry. Don't worry. Thank you for the heads up. I will message you right after this and we will get that sorted. Where's my spot? Hi, Mina. Hello. Hi, Belwick. Missy, I have a fun idea. Can we try the list method as a group? Can you give us 3 things to manifest and see how many of us have seen them by next week? A bit like our own ladder experiments. I love that. I love that. Absolutely. 3 things to manifest and see. Wait, do you want me to give you the 3 things, or y'all pick 3 things? I might be a little bit confused, but that's such a good idea. That's such a good idea. I love that. Oop. Oh. Thank you guys. You're so sweet. All of you are so sweet. Is taking action not good when manifesting, such as text to SP first and trying to reach out first? Should I just keep waiting by focusing only on the inside without taking any action? Good question. Yeah. So taking action, like if we're, it really depends on where the urge or where the inspiration is coming from. We talk a lot in this community about inspired action, which really is more of a subconscious action. Like you will be moved without really knowing consciously what you're doing. So if you're reaching out to text SP first, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you to not do that, but ask yourself, where is that stemming from? Like, the urge to reach out and text him, is that coming from a place where you're not trusting the law? You're not trusting that they are in fact gonna reach out first? Are you trying to get some kind of sign from the 3D of where things are at? Those are the kinds of things that we don't wanna take action from that place, if that makes sense. Um, yeah. All we're asked to do is go to the end in imagination, take some sort of action. If you need to take action, do it in your imagination, right? Um, yeah, because there's no need to do any of that. As Neville said, we don't need to lift a finger to make it so. Inspired action, you will be moved or someone will be moved to make it happen, whatever that looks like. And we won't really know that bridge of events until we're on the other side of it. It's in hindsight, typically. Hello, Apollo. Hi. How many methods are there for past revisions slash erasing past memory? If so, what's the best method of all of them? Please say this if you can. Absolutely, Mohammed. How many methods are there for revision? I mean, there's many different ways to revise. Many different ways to revise. Um, you, you can use any sort of like technique that works best for you. So, for example, if you're somebody who's a visual person, if you see things in your mind's eye, you can you can do that. If you're better with like inner conversations and dialogue, you can revise that way. You can revise through scripting. Um, yeah, absolutely. And then there's revisions for the long-term past, short-term past. We can revise on the spot. And I can't really give you a best method because that's going to be different for everyone. What is best for me may not be best for you. And the idea that I want all of you to, the idea that I want to give you guys is really experiment and play with different things to see what resonates and comes most naturally for you. Because it's going to be subjective. 100%. So play around with different ways of revising, and see what feels best for you. Yeah. I love doing sats and I am great at it. Awesome. Is it enough or do I need to affirm or not do sats? No, that's enough. Sats on its own, sats is a powerful technique. I've never done sats and not seen the outcome of it. But so it's not about needing to do more, not at all of the techniques serve the same purpose, and that's to help you capture the feeling of it. It's to help you really identify and get familiar with the state where it is already so. It is already done. So if SATS is what you enjoy and it comes naturally to you and it feels good, that's more than enough. Yeah. I imagined eating a pink apple, and the next morning I stumbled upon a video showing a woman eating a pink apple. But the issue is, in my imagination, I imagined me eating it, but 3D only showed a video. Well, I mean, don't assume that that means it failed. Don't assume that that means like that. That just means that perhaps you haven't had that pink apple show up for you to eat yet, right? I mean, if you imagine from first person and you put all the senses into it as you could and really got the feel of it, then that will show up. That will show up. I have a strange question. When visualizing, do you say things in your head like, I have a blue dress, I'm walking, it's raining, before you create the image in your head? Good question. I assume you're referring to like, is that what I do? Um, no, when I do sats, I will sometimes before going into the drowsy state, I'll kind of get an outline or an idea of what I want to imagine or what I want the scene to look like. sort of like set the stage or set the tone for it. But when I go into the drowsy state, I really just focus on the feeling of it. Really just, you know, uh, focus gently on the feeling. And keyword is gently, softly. I don't try to like force anything. Um, and 99 times out of 100, that scene will just start to naturally come up for me. I don't have to sort of narrate it, so to speak. But if it helps you to do that, if it helps you to, kind of narrate or yeah, say these things such as like I'm walking, it's raining. If that helps you to really get yourself into that state, then do it. 100%. Missy, I'm delving into non-dualism and self-inquiry, and is talking to yourself in the third person a good way to separate consciousness from the ego? Yes, it is. Very much so, it is. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the things that I did that really helped to enforce, like, remind myself and enforce that separation. That, like, I would say things like, "Oh, Missy Renee is pissed right now. Missy Renee is feeling frustrated because this traffic is stupid." Like, that really helped to see, because who is that is aware of these observations, right? Who is aware of Missy Renee's thoughts? That's awareness, that's consciousness, right? So yeah, it really does, really, really helpful. And like I said, I am making a video about, well, finishing a video about detachment and self-inquiry, because that truly needs to be emphasized more. Where's my spot? Good morning from me. Good morning. Is denying your senses ignoring what's currently showing in 3D? I was told ignoring something brings more awareness to it. Thank you. So, ignoring something brings more awareness to it. How? Oh, I think you're referring to like the pink elephant. Like, oh, don't think of a pink elephant, then you're going to think of a pink elephant. Um, well, we take our attention away from what we don't want by putting our attention somewhere else that's more desirable instead. So we're not trying to say like, "Oh god, don't think about that bad thing. Don't think about that bad thing." We're saying, "I'm gonna think about this good thing instead. I'm gonna imagine this lovely thing instead. What would it be like if I was now on the beach in Hawaii?" Or whatever, like whatever it might be. Does that make sense? That's sort of the denying your senses. You're instead in imagination going to where you desire to be, and not trying to force yourself to ignore the 3D. In terms of an SP, how do we let go of the fear and belief that we will be treated poorly again, or the fear belief it won't happen? Good question. Um, we 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 detach from that by continuing to occupy the state of having, the state of being, and that's why we're told to go there. Like, we want to crowd out all of those old assumptions, old stories, by becoming more and more familiar with the state of having and being instead. The experience of it in your mind is going to become more and more natural. You're going to be more and more accustomed to that versus that old story. So if you are continuing to saturate yourself in the state of, um, being treated well, lovely, having everything that you desire already happening to you, being treated with respect and kindness, um, feeling loved, feeling chosen, that's going to start to take precedent. That's gonna start to really fixate as your dominant state. And that's how we get rid of that old belief. Like, that belief has just been conditioned because it's something that we've unconsciously been putting our attention on for a long time, right? But we can undo that. We can we can change it. It's all imagination. That's how we change the old beliefs and assumptions. I want my SP and have been affirming and living in the end. I found that my new self concept didn't like being friends after the breakup, so I ended it. Did I screw it up or is this bridge of incidents? You can't screw up your manifestation. And that's something that I really, really try to stress. It is impossible to ruin your manifestation. Like, past the point of no return, you can't go there. No. Um, and like, be true to you always. If taking if taking that action in the 3D meant that you can now have the space and clarity to really immerse yourself without getting triggered by the 3D, getting triggered by what you don't want out there, that's never a bad thing. You know, I cut contact with my person for a while because it was continuously, uh, I was continuing to react to it. It was continuing to be a trigger for me, and I found it very difficult. So, um, no, that in and of itself is not screw anything up. Failure is only possible if we accept that we failed. That's about it. How to let the old man die when 3D is so triggering. It feels like I cannot manifest my SP because old man is so loud and persistent. I have doubts, I'm not confident I can manifest it back together. Yeah, this is something many, many, many people struggle with. Again, I know the 3D is so overbearing because it feels so real to us. We're having this 3D experience. We've been living in this 3D world, assuming that the rules and limitations of the 3D are real to us. So, this is habitual, right? And we're very conditioned to it. Um, what we want to practice doing, and really it is a practice, is like shutting out the 3D. Like, when you close your eyes to go within, pretend in those moments that the 3D doesn't even exist. And you're just imagining to give yourself the experience of it in imagination. Like, you're not doing this to try to get the 3D to change, right? That's where a lot of the resistance comes in. That's where, oh, it's not going to happen. It's, all those intrusive thoughts start to come up when we approach it like that. Um, just practice going within for the sake of, I want to experience what this would be like. This hypothetical scenario. This you know get familiar with that state in your imagination first, not to manifest it, just for the sake of getting used to what this is like, right? That's really, and again, that's why we have to stop restricting our imagination. We have got to stop putting these boundaries up in our mind as to, like, oh, we can't even go here because the 3D says I can't. That's not true. There's literally no limitations in our mind, right? So yeah, continue to practice. When you shut your eyes, the 3D doesn't even exist anymore. Don't take any of that with you. Don't do it. Uh, dun, 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 dun. This week, I conquered my double mindedness by doing a meditation where I visited my younger self in a loving way and told her the fulfillment only comes from within. The result, no more resistance. Yes, yes, Miss Coco, that's amazing. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what is up. Yeah, fulfillment only comes from within. Yeah, if we continue to seek fulfillment outside of ourselves, we're going to continue to chase and chase and chase. Give that to yourself now. You do not have to wait. There is no waiting. Is the ego is it the ego that notices the lack of something? And the ego is not who we really are. Can I imagine knowing it's a done deal and knowing that if I still don't see it, it's just the ego? Yes, 100%. So the ego is that sense of self. It's the self concept basically. It's this idea that we are this individual, right? And it's also what gives us the sense of separation, like the sense that there's others outside of us. So, yeah, it's the ego that knows that notices I don't have this thing because again, like that's how we can have a human experience is because of the ego. So, and that's not who we really are. I mean, it's an illusion basically. So I and my father are one. So the ego and awareness are one, but awareness or the father is greater than I. So yeah, knowing it's done is literally it. That's the key right there. Does being the person who already has your desire mean act like you already have it, or can it mean that we just know and trust that it's coming? The latter, the latter. So in imagination, when we are going within, we are now that person. We are now enjoying the experience. We are enjoying the fulfillment of our desire in imagination. Um, it doesn't mean that we have to act like it's already there in the 3D right now. Like we don't have to try to like pretend or fake it till we make it. That's not necessary. Um, because you know and understand that when you go there in 4D or imagination, it must come in 3D because the 3D always follows the 4D, right? So yeah, the latter. Good questions today, you guys. Oh, you are all so welcome. Yay. How can you manifest your future husband when they aren't a specific person? Do you use a celebrity as a template so you have a visual? Thanks. I mean, you absolutely can do that. Yeah, if you have if there's somebody who looks like your ideal, that you wanna use as a template, absolutely. What I would do, when it comes to manifesting a loving partner or relationship, uh, that's not specific, I would first get very clear on what that looks like. So, what I did and what many people have done is write out a list of all the traits and qualities and characteristics of your ideal person, and get very familiar with that. Everything from again like personality to what they look like, physical traits, you know, their what's the word I'm looking for? Why did I just draw a blank? I mean, you probably get the point, but get very clear on what that person is like in imagination. And yeah, yeah, we can go nuts. In Japan, we don't have a strong Christian culture, but in some temples in Japan, God is represented as a mirror. When I met the law, I finally understood this. Amazing how everything connects. Yes, yes, absolutely. Um, when we really get to the core of understanding, different religions, different spiritualities, they're all saying the same thing. It all connects. It's all consciousness. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. When I had that realization, that blew my mind wide open. Hey, Missy, I'm always detached from my desires, but it's because of me always feeling like there's acceptance that I can make do with anything. Is that okay? Is just accepting failure in the end? Is it just accepting failure in the end? Um, I, I wouldn't say detachment is accepting failure. No, no. Um, I mean that is a form of detachment from desiring, right? Because really, we're moving from the state of desiring something to the state of having or being. That's detachment. So, ex- I don't recommend going that route. Yeah, no, I would instead continue to practice and get familiar with giving yourself that experience in imagination, because you can always do that. You don't have to accept anything less. You don't have to go without in imagination. You don't have to settle in imagination. You don't have to do any of that. So give yourself whatever you desire there first and foremost, because that's definitely a belief. There's a belief that you can just make do with anything, and just settle basically. And I personally don't want to see you do that. You should never have to just settle for whatever, settle for something that you don't want. No. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Happy Mind Affirmations. How to deal with time when the manifestation is age related. Pregnancy. There's also a situation with my SP involved, which makes it hard for me to trust it is done. Any advice? Thank you. Absolutely. And I know this can be a big one because we have very much many different cultures and societies have sort of this idea that, at a certain age, your chance to get pregnant plummets. And we've all, a lot of people have come to accept that as truth, as gospel, and it's not. It's not. Um, none of that matters. And one of the first things that I would do is read stories, read up of women in their 40s, even 50s, who had a successful pregnancy and delivery and had a healthy baby. I've seen it happen. I've worked with clients that that was the thing that they desired and thought that they couldn't. None of that matters. None of that matters. So yeah, and then there's plenty of instances out there to kind of negate that belief, right? That can prove that belief to be wrong. Um, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of, we've been fed a lot of BS, and we're just unlearning and unconditioning a lot of it. And if you're having difficulty accepting the end because of a situation in the 3D, um, remember that that limitation doesn't exist. Like, you can go somewhere in imagination where that doesn't exist. Whatever the situation in the 3D is, you can go somewhere else. You can experience something else in your mind. We have to stop taking the circumstances of the 3D and using that to restrict ourselves. That is one of the biggest reasons that we fail to see any movement, because we're taking the 3D as like, oh, that's final. I'm going to fixate my attention on that of what I don't want, instead of going to the place in imagination where what I desire is already mine. So leave all of that at the door. Like, don't take any of that with you when you go within. And I know it can be difficult just because of how conditioned we are to 3D. But this is a practice of doing just that. There are no limitations. None of that matters. You are limitless in imagination. And what you imagine creates reality. Remember? If we remember, imagination creates reality, and we can go anywhere in imagination. Just follow that. Follow that. Thank you again for the super chat, though. Let me find my spot again. Is revising using visualization absolutely necessary? What if I can feel differently about the past, even just by telling a different version of the event to myself every time the last pops up? Yeah, you can absolutely do that. Visualization is not absolutely necessary. No, no. Um, that's one way to imagine. That's just one aspect of our imagination. It does not have to be. No. Yeah, if telling yourself a different version, if recalling a different timeline or event, that works just fine. It's more about how we feel. It's more about what we begin to resonate with, right? Feeling is the secret, not the technique itself. You're my favorite YouTuber. Oh, thank you, Mr. Morris. What has been my biggest manifestation? Please share the story. My biggest manifestation? Oh man. Uh that's that's tricky to decide. That would be tricky. Because I mean there's been several. There's been several. I mean, my husband is probably I mean, that's certainly a big one. Which I've already made a video about that story. If you haven't checked it out, you can. I manifested health for my sister who had a cancer diagnosis, manifested her getting well, manifested an old business partner to get well, not require surgery, many miraculous things, um, many things that should not have been possible. Manifested getting into the biggest film festival of all time and going to a red carpet premiere, um, which was wild. Manifested this house. Yeah, there's been so many. I've I've moved within worlds. I've traveled in ways that yeah, man, I've made videos talking about worlds within worlds before. But yeah, when I say imagination is limitless, I truly mean that. When I manifest financial abundance slash freedom, I'm going to be a guest success story on this channel. Yeah. 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 I look forward to it, Jamie. I cannot wait. It is done. Also, I found that ignoring the 3D and living in the end comes second nature when I accept that creation comes from within, that I am the source. So reacting to the 3D is futile and counterproductive. Yes, that's it, Miss Coco. That's it. That's the biggest takeaway, the biggest realization that we need to have. It will become second nature when we accept that creation comes from within. Life happens from us. It is not happening to us. There is nothing outside of us that we're trying to attract or change. All of creation comes from within. That's what that means. And I'm so happy to hear that you've had that realization. That's the most important thing to have. Yay! Cannot find it. Sorry, guys. I'm not trying to take forever. When I stop reacting to things that I don't agree with, does that mean that I am on track? I feel the I feel that going into the silence in meditation, but I still struggle in looking to the 3D. Um, to the first question, yes. When we stop reacting to things, that's our reactions can tell us a lot. Our reactions tell us a lot about the beliefs and assumptions, right? What are we holding on to as true? What are we continuing to believe and assume? Um, One of the ways that we'll know that we have changed our self concept or changed from within is we will react differently. We'll notice the thoughts change. All of that will change. So if you're noticing a change in reactions and reacting less and less from the undesirable state, that's absolutely fantastic indication. I feel going into the silence and meditation, but I still struggle looking to the 3D. Yeah, the looking to the 3D, it's such a strong habit that we have, and it is for most people going to be a practice to break it. But that's why, like, continuing to remember that nothing comes from without. Nothing comes from without. Like, I cannot stress that enough. That the 3D is all just out picturing. It's old. It's malleable. Nothing in there is final. No. But it is a practice getting used to that because we're talking decades and decades of conditioning to 3D circumstance. So, but the fact that your reactions have changed is a fantastic indication. How do you gain trust in your manifestation ability? How do you have faith in your ability to manifest? Love you. Oh, I love you too, Joe. How do you gain trust? This is an important question. Yeah, because faith is, man, I cannot stress enough the importance of continuing to grow our trust and faith. And I don't know if it's talked about often enough, but it needs to be, right? How do you gain trust in your manifestation ability? See that this is something that you're already doing. We have to become aware that this is something that we are always already doing. And we do that through observation. We do that by just observing the thoughts, reactions, moods that we have in the day-to-day, the natural thoughts, right? The ones that are just coming up on their own. We're not trying to force it. We're not doing anything like that. But just where we are naturally in the day-to-day, and also note the 3D circumstances. And we're gonna see that they go hand in hand, right? And the more that we become aware and observant, we're going to see that, yeah, if we imagine something and then it happens in the 3D, we're going to notice that, oh, this person showed up in this way when I assumed that they were going to. Like, we will start to see it. We will start to see it. But we have to be paying attention, right? Which is why, I say for 24 hours, just do nothing but observe. Just observe without judgment, without trying to flip any thoughts. Don't try to push it away. Just observe where you naturally dwell in your day to day. And then note the 3D circumstances. And you're going to see that it goes hand in hand. And that's how you continue to naturally build your faith. Good or bad, we're always doing this. Yeah, good question, though. All right, I got time for maybe one or two more questions. Damn it. Hi, Missy. We can imagine as long as we want, but if our subconscious mind tells us the contrary, it won't manifest, right? We need to change our subconscious beliefs first. Well, we change our beliefs through imagination. Like that's how we change. Um, because yes, typically speaking, we manifest what we assume and believe is true, right? We assume and believe something, and thus it happens because that's how we select states. That's how we select what reality to experience. That's what we have been doing this whole time. But we change that through our imagination. Like our imagination is our creative power. That is the power of God within us. That is Christ within us, to allow ourselves to imagine something different, imagine something completely new. And that's how we change the beliefs. So it's not that we need to change the beliefs first and then imagine. Um, no, that's no. Through imagination, we can change anything, internally and externally. Started following these lives a year ago and won't get tired of it. Oh, thank you, Lissy. Thank you. It's good to have you here. A lot of questions about faith and faith building, which I love to see because that's important. Again, continue to observe, like just and one of the reasons that I'm not really a big fan of just like flipping all your thoughts, or just trying to like suppress and ignore your thoughts is that you're not really allowing yourself to observe what you may be doing to create said 3D circumstance, right? Like it's easy to overlook things if we're just trying to be like, oh God, because good or bad, we're always doing this, right? Um, so just let yourself be aware. And that doesn't mean we need to police our thoughts. It doesn't mean we need to like obsessively note every single thought through our mind. Just allow yourself to really take note through the day where you're dwelling. And again, you're going to see more and more and more that this always goes hand in hand. Always goes hand in hand. But surely there is a means to an end with manifesting. You can't just imagine your life until you die if you're not getting to actually have it. Yeah, the means to an end with manifesting is that you experience it in 3D, what you imagine. I'm not asking people to just imagine without the 3D. Like whatever we imagine becomes our 3D reality. Um, so it's not saying that I'm not saying that you need to just enjoy the imaginal experience and not the 3D experience. What we imagine becomes our 3D reality, right? Um, if you imagine something, you will get to have it in 3D. That's how this works. That's how this works. Yeah, and that brings me to another really good point. Don't keep looking at your imagination in 3D as separate. And that's another way that we get ourselves stuck in the 3D, because we think our imagination is fake or it's just make believe. It's not. That is your creative power, and we're learning how to embrace it. We're learning how to exercise it because it's very much like a muscle. And we may have been restricting it for a very long time unknowingly, but now we're going to really begin to exercise and condition only what we desire to experience in imagination, because that is what becomes your 3D reality. So I hope that makes sense. On that note, you guys, I do got to get going. Unfortunately, thank you so much for being here today. I've had a blast. Amazing questions, all of you. Much, much, much love. And I look forward to seeing you here next week. Hopefully, come join me next time. Take care, you guys. Bye.